So back in the fall, we had a fun little gig, especially after not speaking in front of live audiences for a long time or being in front of groups in person. We got to speak at the Internal Leadership Conference for Noom, the health fitness app, which was fun because it's made up of lots of health coaches.
Yeah.
And so, there's kind of a like vibe among other coaches.
And it was in Arizona.
Well, that helps.
Oh my God. It was so beautiful.
It was really beautiful place, really fun conference, great people there. I love the people at that company. And we spoke on stage, which was really fun. And afterwards, it was a pretty social setting. So we're outside hanging around and people started coming up to us and saying, "Oh, Greenhouse, thank you guys so much. You've always been really helpful to us." And you and I start kind of looking at each other. But we're both pretty good improvisers, so we're just going along with it. Yeah. And
we're like, how are we helpful
We've never
to
worked with them before. And they're like, "Oh, you guys' service has just always been so helpful. And when we're recruiting, you always just really find us the right people." Mm-hmm. And, suddenly you and I, our faces start dropping. We're like, oh.
It's the other.
The one we don't speak of. And there's another company out there called Greenhouse that does recruiting. And we have some overlap. I think they also do some leadership stuff, but their main thing is recruiting. And Noom had been working with them and thought that we were the same them. Greenhouse.
Yep.
So I don't know if it was a compliment or I think we just rolled with it and it was funny. And then we said,
but we definitely thought about it.
We definitely, yes. So that evening around the pool with our cocktails was a rough conference to go to. It was. We talked about, do we need to change the name?
Yeah.
And do we need to switch some things around? I think it's always been kind of tricky that the name Greenhouse has a lot of meaning for us.
Yeah.
But it's also greenhouse. Googling greenhouse
you
doesn't...
will see greenhouses. Big ones, small ones.
You'll definitely find some other stuff.
You can put on your deck.
Yes. Yeah. We should start a line of those. But then especially in the, leadership and coaching space, there's this other greenhouse company. So, come full circle, recently that company reached out to us and we're like, yeah, we got to work out some of these name things. Yeah, I think we do. So I think that just kind of that's just more of a fun story that adds to something we've been thinking about with this podcast, which is the Greenhouse podcast is cool because the company is called Greenhouse Coaching, but it makes it hard for people to find. It's not always clear what the topic is. And we've just for a while wanted to change the name to be a little more on point. So I wanted to share with everyone that we're changing the name in the next episode. It's going to be Career Sweet Spot.
Am I still invited?
No, you have to try out. We're going to have tryouts. We're going to have tryouts for people named Sunday.
Yeah.
So there might be a long line.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Career Sweet Spot. And so starting in the next episode, that's the name. New artwork on the cover, new name. But it's still going to be the same great podcast you've always enjoyed.
It's still going to be you and me.
No, I think the important thing for people to know is you have to subscribe. Or I think if you're on Spotify, is it follow? I think it's follow the podcast.
And it's a plus sign now on Apple Podcasts.
Okay. So do you unplus?
Well, so if you're following now, you'll still be able to see it. But if you want to show us a little love, it'll help the show if you just click.
Please show us
unfollow,
love.
follow back.
Yeah.
Only love, guys.
Love.
But for real, on a true note, it does really help us to subscribe, to subscribe, to check mark, to plus, to follow. But it'll also help you to keep seeing the show in your feed. If you like it, if you've been waiting for an out, this is your chance.
I was also thinking that too. I was like, they're like, I'm leaving.
I don't have to tell them I'm leaving now.
Easy, clean breakup.
Yeah. So I'm just really excited because along with the name shift, we're going to kind of spice it up and try some new things. We're going to have different segments. We're going to have some fun guests from our membership community, and we're going to talk about some fresh new topics. I'm just really excited about it. And I think, I don't know, something about the name change kind of feels like a fresh start too.
Yeah. Me too. Because it's like that with everything. It's like a new outfit or a new coat of paint. Sometimes you're just like, new me, a new house, new wall. It just gives you fresh perspective, something exciting.
I'm excited for my face to not be on it anymore.
Oh, yeah. I am too, by the way.
All right. Let's move on. No.
It's fun to say.
We debated that one so much. I think we've been wanting to do.
Well, no, the truth is you started it before I ever was around. So
that's right.
That's what it was. We're just going to stick right. And then we're going to keep it that way.
Yeah.
So we come up with a way to have no faces.
Yeah. So
no faces, no names. It's very, very androgynous.
Right. Tommy, if you're listening, sorry to you too. So for our longtime listeners, that Tommy Thompson used to be also on this podcast. And I really just like to keep a theme of keeping the other hosts' faces off. I want it to be all focused on me.
Right.
So
because you're not going anywhere.
It's really a strategy. So when you quit, we're not screwed.
That's right.
Well, okay. So the thing I wanted to actually talk about, though, is that topic of Career Sweet Spot, which for us is our flagship course and coaching within our community. But I think, like, what does the term mean? Sometimes we get the question, and I think it's a really relevant topic right now. And I was thinking about, we had a new member join the other day, and on one of the group coaching calls, she said, I feel like kind of an in-betweener, like I'm a Swiss Army knife. Like growing up, I was in all the sports and kind of, sort of in all the cliques. So I didn't belong to any of them. Like I never knew where I fit because I was kind of a little bit of everything.
Yep.
And the rest of us were laughing, and she kept talking. She didn't know if we were laughing at or with her. And then she said a little bit more like, I feel like such a generalist. And finally we said, no, we're laughing because you're so in the right place. Like all of us here feel like some form of generalist. And it's that why Career Sweet Spot resonates so much is because we've never known exactly where we fit or how our skills and interests translate to our work and to our life. And so I've always had this thing as, leading Greenhouse, like, oh, well, that's not really a niche. Like, that's not like a group of people out there. So it doesn't make sense to say that. And I'm learning more and more, like, no, that's actually a group of people. We were joking that there's even personality types that kind of highlight this. People who are creative, people who are like curious and learners tend to fit in this type of category. And so I just want to kind of like own it and put a flag in the ground. Like that is
like truly a flagship. Truly.
and just kind of like say, no, that's what we do. And that's really who we serve. I mean, obviously what we do helps a lot of people. But that kind of in-betweener Swiss Army knife generalist is I think who often feels the tension of like, what is my sweet spot when it comes to career? So like I said, that's one of our main courses and coaching processes is the Career Sweet Spot. But I think really like the name Greenhouse, it's still the company name because it's all about like people growing into their potential. But what we've realized is really you kind of are able to tap into your potential more when you understand more about your sweet spot. Like the more you start to learn about yourself and how you're wired, the more you're able to kind of maybe enjoy your work or find the right fit or make a difference in other people's lives and that kind of thing. So that all ties into the name change because I think with the Greenhouse podcast, we were all feeling in our own ways a little boxed in. And, we talk a lot about career change, about leadership topics, and it feels like we know that all makes sense.
Right.
But we didn't feel like it fit the framing. And I think for us, the Career Sweet Spot idea entails this holistic, like you are a human who works and lives and has all these things and it's all one. And so we know that from coaching because that's what happens in the coaching process. Like you're talking about a whole person and all aspects of their life,
right? How
they fit together, where there's tension. And so to us, it makes sense to talk about all those different things. And so we needed like a framing for that to feel good about, all right, we can talk about all those topics. And really the idea of Career Sweet Spot isn't just limited to you're making a change or you're just like a leader and trying to learn how to lead better or you're trying to understand yourself better. It's kind of it's all of those things. It's like,
it's not just one of them. Yeah. No, I think when you think of the career sweet spot, you're either trying to find it, right? You're trying to live it better, right? Trying to, it's so your career sweet spot will change over time. And so we cover that journey for you.
Yeah, because that really is the greenhouse method. It's this idea of, all right, your career sweet spot, find it, and then step into it, and then live it and grow into it. And so those steps of the process are a holistic thing that include a lot of transitions and changes, a lot about leadership, big time, but also just about growing into who you are. And I mean, you know this, but for me, this company even was born out of that struggle and tension. Is I was for years thinking like, where do I fit? Like, what is that sweet spot? If I spend so much of my time at work, like I want it to count, and where should that energy go? And so I got frustrated that it didn't seem like there was a process out there to figure this out. It's like, shouldn't this be a thing? I mean, this is kind of a big deal in life, right? Shouldn't there be like you should learn about this, right? And so I'm not going to say there aren't any processes out there, but I couldn't find it. So I started kind of just building it myself.
They didn't resonate with you is what it was. Or they just tapped into a piece of you, but it didn't pull you further than what you maybe already knew.
Yeah.
And that was where I feel like you were like, it's just not enough.
Yeah. And kind of like how we're curators of, we listen to a lot of stuff and read a lot of things and try to kind of curate and bring the best of that to people. We're not necessarily like the research and developers of the content, but more the curators.
Right.
That's essentially what I haphazardly was doing. I was kind of taking the best of these different like personality assessments or these books or these like white papers or this. And then, a little nod to Tommy, who was my original co-host on this podcast, he was one of the key people who helped me kind of pull all that together. I had built this process and I was like trying it out on myself and others. And then some of the things he brought to me helped it click. And I felt like, oh, that's it. That's kind of what I'm meant to do, what I want to do, which led to launching and building Greenhouse.
Yep.
So my passion is to help other people with that. And that's what we're all about at Greenhouse is, how do you understand more about yourself and that sweet spot so that life and work can be more fulfilling, more intentional. And we know that it's just true of creatives and in-betweeners and generalists that's really a pain point. So I think, it really speaks to them.
I think that also it's really doing what we're already doing, but it gives us it's a cleaner umbrella too. It's like from the very beginning of your career all the way to the end of your career, whatever that is. And even you want to live in some sort of sweet spot. It's not like anyone really wants any part of their career to not be in that place. And so keeping that flow going, it also, we talk about that flow. We talk about the early stages, the middle stages, later stages. And so it just gives us the clarity for the message we're trying to give.
Yeah. Yeah. I've also felt that tension of, we work a lot with career changers, but also with leaders. But it's always kind of the same, like for us, in our experience, it's all the same stuff. But it sounds like two different groups. And I think the reality is most people who lead other people are absolutely trying to like hone in on their sweet spot and trying to learn how to do that better and help others better. And so it's a big part of that. And I think if you are learning more about yourself and leaning into that, you're naturally going to be leading or influencing others in your life as well. So I think anyone who is attracted to this idea or would resonate with this podcast, they care about kind of, they're a holistic person thinking about the different parts of their life. A great example, one of the members in our community who I've been coaching a little bit lately, he came to a session talking about this job scenario in his work. And he was kind of struggling with like, he is leading more people now and there are changes in the company and he's trying to figure it all out. And then by halfway through the conversation, we're talking about like these goals and dreams he has for his marriage. He recently got married. And it's like, it's tough because he has this vision for how great he hopes it can be. But there's all kinds of challenges in the day to day, especially when you're, brand new in this relationship. And I walked away from that conversation being so inspired because I was like, yes, this is it. Like the reason we talked about that whole gamut of things is because your life affects your work. and your work affects your life.
Yes.
And I think my hope for Career Sweet Spot is you hopefully can craft your work more and more to facilitate the life that you want.
Yeah.
And you are a whole person where that intersection matters, and you want to grow more into your potential because there's so much more that's like possible for you in all those categories. So that's really what this podcast is about, is to dive into all of those parts and to talk about different topics, but to invite other voices in as well.
Love it.
So I think the bottom line is if you are somebody who wants clarity and to take steps forward in your career, this is going to be a great podcast for you. And if you have a friend or somebody you know in that space, I think they would value this. And so you can follow along with us. And just a reminder, go ahead and subscribe. It's called Career Sweet Spot, starting with the next episode.